This show is dedicated to all my Patreons. Thanks, Patreons. You guys are the best. Let's have some more news. Lead story. Former Commissioner Orin Miller's perjury conviction has been overturned. Villager contends vindicated commissioner deserves to be reinstated. The mayor of Lady Lake was knocked off Tuesday by a fellow villager in an election marked by heavy turnout. Wildwood Special Magistrate approves a plat for Tillman Oaks development. Wildwood officials meet in a special session to correct tax rate mistake. Village's health doctor accused by another patient of botched procedure. Villager with a cane arrested on a DUI after his wife bails out of the car and calls Uber. $525,693 to be spent to fix problem-causing courts that crumble in the villages. Suspected golf cart thief back in jail after allegedly punching a woman in the face. Letters to the editor. How many holes in ones of golf did we get this week? This and more. Coming up. Lead story. Former Sumter County Commissioner Orin Miller perjury conviction has been overturned by an appellate panel of judges. The decision by the 5th District Court of Appeal was announced Thursday morning. The Village of Sanibel resident was overjoyed at the news. And may I say that I am too. Miller served 2.5 months behind bars as a result of his conviction in 2022. The jury handed down its verdict on November 18. In addition to jail time, he was sentenced to 36 months of probation. His case went before the appeal panel in September. The perjury charge against Miller stemmed from interviews with the prosecutor's office about phone calls Miller had with fellow former Commissioner Gary Search. According to their ruling, the judges found that Miller had been truthful and forthcoming during interviews. In fact, Miller attempted to clarify the record. Such corrections of clarification is not only permitted, it is encouraged. Permitting an individual to clarify or correct prior false or erroneous statements advances the core of the judicial functions, a just determination of cases based on applicable law and the truth born from evidence. Florida law has long recognized this enduring principle. The judicial panel wrote in the decision. Miller and Search were elected by Sumter County Commissioners in 2020. Their election came after a huge property tax increase in 2019 that was seen as a sweetheart deal for the developer of the villages. The good old boy system? Let me just say, I don't know about all the inside stuff that's going on here. I don't know anything about it. But I do know that him and Search got elected because of the property taxes. We voted some commissioners out and voted these residents of the villages in. And then right away, almost right away, accusations got thrown around. This poor guy, they did a plea deal with Search, and this poor guy went to jail. Now they found out that what he did wasn't illegal at all. Somebody owes this young man some money, an apology, and maybe anything else that he's missed out on in life because you took it away from him. And I said it before and I'll say it again. There's something in this woodpile that stinks. A villager appealed before the Sumter County Commissions on Tuesday night and argued that vindicated Commissioner Orin Miller should be reinstated to his seat on the board. I'd go along with that if he wants to do it. Village of Bonita resident Gilbert Windor pointed out that Miller last week won his appeal, overturning his 2022 conviction on a charge of perjury. Windor added that Miller spent last Thanksgiving and Christmas behind bars. When you take somebody's freedom away over politics, it's horrible. I think politics in general nowadays is horrible. Windor pointed out that Miller, who was not in attendance at the meeting at Everglades Recreation Center, was suspended by the governor after he was charged. Windor said the suspension should be ended and Miller should be reinstated. He belongs up on stage, Windor said. He said it was the electorate which chose Miller and it was the will of the people. To see him serve as a commissioner, Windor added that Miller is owed back pay and everything else. When Miller was suspended, Diane Spencer was originally appointed to replace him. When Spencer opted to step down, villager Don Wiley was appointed to the District 5 seat. Wiley later won election in that seat. County Attorney Jennifer Ray said the status of the suspension would be a matter for the governor's office. The mayor of Lady Lake was knocked off Tuesday by a fellow villager in an election marked by heavy turnout. Villager Mike Sage prevailed in the Ward 5 commission race over incumbent Jim Reitz. Both men live on the historic side of the villages. Sage, a former resident of Connecticut who has lived in the villages for many years, attributed his victory to old-fashioned politicking. I was successful because I knocked on every door in Ward 5. Well, that's one way to get her done. There were a total of 609 votes cast in the off-year election. Sage collected 415 votes and Reitz collected 194 votes. It represented a 64.14 to 31.86% split of the votes. Sage was at the lone polling station, the Paradise Recreation Center, from 6:45 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday. He said he was enthusiastically greeted by the voters. They said, "I voted for you, Mike, because you came to my house." He said poll workers told him 150 voters were turned away Tuesday because they were from Ward 4, which is also located on the historic side of the villages. They falsely believed they could cast a ballot in the race. Sage said participation in Ward 5 race on Tuesday doubled from what it was in the last contest. I can see where those two wards would cross there and be confusing, Ward 4, Ward 5. I don't think anybody was purposely trying to cast an illegal vote, so to speak. It's hard to, in the villages, you guys will find out if you come here, it's hard to know where one village stops and another one begins. They're not marked. Sage will be sworn in and seated on November 20th. The Lady Lake Commission members chose the mayor. The mayor is not directly elected by the citizens. Now keep in mind, that's Lady Lake. That's Lake County. And then the biggest part of the villages is Sumter County. Two different things going on here. So don't get them mixed up. A single-family development with 203 homes is planned near County Road 462 and 209 in Wildwood. Special Magistrate Lindsay C.T. Holt recommended approval of a plat for the Tillman Oaks Improvement Plan at a meeting Tuesday at the Wildwood Planning and Zoning Board. The City Commission likely will consider the project later this month. Tillman Oaks will be west of 301 and the City Police Headquarters. It will be served by a network of private roads. The project includes several small recreation areas, including a tot lot, playground, and dog park. About 20% of the 62-acre plat will be open space, and some of the property is reserved for future expansion. Lots will be 50 feet wide and range from 121 to 188 feet long. Last October, commissioners approved a comprehensive plan amended and rezoning of Tillman Villas, expected to include 150 townhomes and 20 acres at that same location. Tillman Oaks is part of a rapidly growing area of Wildwood that includes the 374-home Highfield at Twisted Oaks project and Twisted Oaks, which is expected to have 1,210 homes on about 387 acres west of U.S. Highway 301. Twisted Oaks will be the second largest Wildwood residential development, surpassed only by the villages of Southern Oaks. Both projects have been approved. Last year, representatives of the Girl Scout of West Central Florida objected to the Highfield development, claiming that it threatens nearby Camp Wildwood, a 600-acre nature preserve. At a special meeting Monday night, Wildwood City Commission readopted the 2.8287 millage rate it approved on September 25 for the fiscal year that began October the 1st. State law required a new hearing on the rate after an error was discovered in the calculation of the rollback millage rate. The rollback millage rate is generally the amount of property tax the property owner would owe if there were no change to the taxing authority's budget. The 2.8287 millage rate was adopted by the City Commission in September. It was erroneously presented as the rollback rate. The corrected rollback rate of 2.8051 amounts to a difference of 0.0236 for each $1,000 of property value assessment. City officials requested approval from the state to adopt the corrected rollback rate, but were denied. Instead, the city was required to hold a new hearing in which the 2.8287 rate had originally adopted was presented as a tax increase, despite being 0.1713 lower than the prior year's 3.000 rate, and the lowest rate in city history according to available records. Confused yet? In addressing commissioners, Chief Financial Officer and Assistant City Manager Cassandra Smith stated, "I'm aware you had every intention of adopting the rollback rate, and I deeply apologize for putting you in this position. You can't find too much fault there. She's accepting it. She said, I screwed up. This is what it is." That's one thing in government you don't see anymore. Nobody, even in the villages, accepts responsibility. They always point the finger somewhere else. This person, this girl, this woman, this Cassandra Smith, I give her kudos. I have examined how the error occurred, implemented new protocols, and assure you it will never happen again. City Manager Jason McHugh praised Smith for taking ownership of the mistake. The city leaders were also supportive. "There isn't a person in this room who hasn't made a mistake at one time or another," said Mayor Ed Wolf. "I'd also like to point out, for those residents whose property assessments have not increased, this is still a tax decrease." While the special meeting was posted, noticed, and advertised according to state law, only one member of the public attended, and none spoke during the public hearing. A doctor who is currently being sued by one of his former patients is facing a similar lawsuit from a patient who claims he suffered a spinal hematoma after receiving a lumbar injection from the physician. The lawsuit filed on October 30th in Sumter County Circuit Court by Barry Mogan of Orlando-based Morgan Law Office on behalf of his client, John B. Matthews, and his wife, Phyllis Matthews. The suit claims that while working for the village's health system, Dr. Harsha Rajashekar allegedly performed a procedure on Mr. Matthews, then led to an injury with permanent or continuing losses. According to the complaint, Rajashekar performed a lumbar epidermal steroid injection on Mr. Matthews on December 13th, 2021. Whew, I'm sorry, it just sounds painful. During the procedure, Matthews claims that he experienced a sudden, abnormal, and unusual pain which persisted following the procedure. It sounds painful. Matthews was discharged to go home and says that the pain worsened to the point that the pain in his back and legs became unbearable. He says he developed weakness in his lower extremities and other symptoms that were indicative of a potential complication arising from the epidural injection. Matthews says that he and his family made repeated calls to the village's health system switchboard, and that his family's concerns were inadequately communicated by the switchboard personnel to Dr. Rajashekar, or were otherwise given inadequate attention by the doctor. On December 14, 2021, Matthews says his symptoms worsened and included a profound weakness and pain. His family allegedly made calls that morning, according to the complaint. The urgency of the calls was either inadequately communicated or was ignored by the doctor and his nurse. As a result, Mr. Matthews continued to suffer with the hematoma throughout the day and was not provided a return appointment until late in the day. Although the lawsuit does not cite where the procedure took place, according to the Florida Department of Health, Rajashekar works at the Center for Advanced Healthcare in Brownwood in the villages. According to court records, summons were issued to the village's health system, the doctor, and the nurse on October 31. The suit against Dr. Rajashekar comes less than 2 months after the village of Duval woman sued the village's health and the doctor for allegedly permanently injuring her spinal nerves during the lumbar decompression procedure. A villager accused of swindling fellow residents of more than $3 million has been released after posting a sizable bond he previously indicated he could not raise. This is an update to this story from last week. John Mitchell Gesus, 73, the village of Gilchrist, had been held since September 28th at the Sumter County Detention Center on multiple charges of fraud. He was released this past week after posting a $660,000 bond. A bond hearing had been set for December 12, in which Mr. Gesus' attorney was scheduled to make the case for lowering the bond. Apparently, Gesus did not want to wait until December and found a way to come up with the money. He invested $350,000 of his own money into the same fund in which he is accused of knowing was fraudulent. Mr. Gesus lost a substantial portion of his savings that he lived off of during his later years, and he is a man of reasonable means, his attorney wrote in the motion. The attorney claimed that Gesus is not a flight risk as he owns a home in the Villages and does not have a valid passport. The attorney had argued that Gesus was entitled to affordable bond. Those of you, if you're new to watching the news and you'd like to hear more of that story, you can go last week and check it out. And I think also the week before that is when the story first came out. A traffic stop in the Villages led to discovery of a large quantity of drugs and a gun. A white Kia sedan with a non-functioning headlight was traveling at about 4:45 a.m. Tuesday in the 1200 block of Avienda Central when it was pulled over by Lady Lake Police Department. That's up by Spanish Springs. The driver was identified as 51-year-old Frederick Neelums Jr. of Wildwood, who had a suspended driver's license. He was also wanted on a Lake County warrant. A search of the vehicle turned up 130 grams of methamphetamine, 25 grams of cocaine, 4 grams of marijuana, 15 Suboxone patches and other pills. A 38 caliber semi-automatic handgun was also found in the car. The passenger, 21-year-old Dustin McCullough of Leesburg, fled on foot during the traffic stop. He punched an officer who tried to take him into custody. Dakota Knighton, 25 of Ocklawaha, was also a passenger in the vehicle. All three were arrested on numerous charges and booked at the Lake County Jail. Knighton was being held on $79,000 bond. McCullough and Neelums were being held without bond. A villager who relies on a cane was arrested on a drunk driving charge after his wife bailed out of their Cadillac and called an Uber. Man, I don't know what's going on there, but man, how bad are you driving? It'll cause your 70-year-old wife, I don't know how old she is, doesn't say, but still, he's 68, so you got to figure she's around that, right? To bail out of the car. Frank Costa, 68, of the village of DeLuna, was at the wheel of a white Cadillac shortly before 8 p.m. Wednesday when he reportedly was at the entrance of the village of DeLuna and veered from the visitor lane to the resident lane, according to the arrest report. 2 witnesses told police the Cadillac had swerved into oncoming traffic and almost collided with a golf cart on the road. The Cadillac went on to crash into a stop sign at Central Street and Tane Terrace, causing an estimated $350 damage. An officer called up with the Cadillac and initiated a traffic stop in the 4300 Shannon Loop. The Cadillac's driver's side and rear tires were flat and had damage to the rims. There was also damage to the front bumper and passenger side mirror. The officer spotted an open can of Yuengling beer in the car. He also had 2 small bottles of Fireball whiskey in a small backpack where he carried his wallet and driver's license. Costa was asked to step out of the vehicle. It should be noted that Costa requires the use of a cane to walk and stepped out of the vehicle using his cane. Even with the cane, Costa was swaying back and forth and leaning on the car to hold his balance. Costa's wife arrived on the scene and said she and her husband had been at Brownwood Paddock Square where he consumed a single margarita. I don't think so. One drink doesn't make you this way unless you've taken an awful lot of pills. They left Brownwood with her at the wheel of the Cadillac. However, her husband got agitated with her and she parked the car on the side of the road. She called an Uber. Oh, I see. She didn't bail out. She just got out of the car. He said, "You ain't driving right. You're not going fast enough. You want to drive?" And she gets out of the car. That's how that worked. She called an Uber and went home. While he moved from the passenger seat to the driver's seat of the Cadillac, Costa was transported to the UF Health, the village's hospital, freestanding emergency room at Brownwood, where he was medically cleared. He provided breath samples that registered 0.155 and 0.148 blood alcohol content. He was arrested on a charge of driving under the influence. He was booked at Sumter County Detention Center on a $500 bond. A villager is unhappy about fishermen near her home at all times of the day and night. Valerie Greneau of the village of Linden Isle on Thursday morning appealed for help before the Community District Development Board 12 of Supervisors during their meeting at Everglades Rec Center. Greneau and her husband moved to the villages 4 years ago from Illinois. They specifically picked out their lot because they wanted some privacy. However, vehicles are being parked in front of her home on Henry Loop and around the pond, which has proven to be a popular place with fishermen. When Grinnell spoke to supervisors, she held up a copy of the rules that state that vehicles are not to be driven up to the ponds and parked there. They are your rules. I just want you to enforce them, she said. She said she has called Community Watch and the Wildwood Police Department, but has not received any help. Call Rohan's office. He is the head of the Parks and Recreation Department. If that's a village's watering hole, that comes under the Park and Recreation Department's rule, I would think. Just call there. Raise Cain with them, but they're not doing their job. Nobody seems to want to take responsibility to tell them to leave. No, they don't. Nobody around here does. You call them up, and it's just 101 excuses and finger pointing. She said the fishermen are in close proximity to her home around the clock. They are there all times of the day and night. They can look right into our windows. Well, they can, but that thing there's getting a little ridiculous. They probably can, but do they? The odds are they don't. But I agree. You don't want people walking. They're not trespassing. They're by the lake, but they're not in your yard. So is that a public lake? That's what you got to find out. Do we own that lake, or is that a retention pond that we built and we maintain it? We own it. I don't know. She also described a regular who fishes late at night. Deputy District Manager Carrie Duckett said she would research the issue and determine possible solutions. She said she would report back at the board's next meeting. Okay. A Village of Duval resident has filed a lawsuit against the homeowner's insurance provider, accusing the company of not covering the cost that he allegedly incurred as a result of fixing damage caused by Hurricane Ian. Joseph Hadaki filed a lawsuit against State Farm Florida Insurance Company in the 5th Judicial Circuit Court of Sumter County on October the 30th. Hadaki claims that he obtained homeowners insurance through State Farm for the property at 1551 Hallaberry Place in the Village of Duval. Haddock alleges on September 28, 2022, the property sustained direct physical damage caused by Hurricane Ian. He claims his property sustained damages that required reasonable, related, and/or necessary repairs and replacements, as well as appropriate cleaning and other remedial measures, according to the complaint. Looks like a nice home. Haddock claims that he filed a claim with State Farm and was assigned a claim number to identify the loss report. Haddock says he gave the insurance company and its agents access to inspect the insured property. Haddock alleges that the company has failed to establish that it had reasonable proof it was not responsible for the payment of the damages at his home. He claims the company has failed to pay the requested amounts for repairs and is a breach of contract with him. Haddock is seeking damages in excess of $50,000 and his attorney fees, costs, and interest, according to the complaint. Not sure you'll get that. A lot of states do not allow you to collect attorney fees. Haddock is one of several villagers who have filed lawsuits against insurance companies alleging a lack of reimbursement for damages caused by hurricanes. A Village of Virginia Trace couple filed a lawsuit against Castle Key Indemnity Company, a subsidiary of Allstate Insurance. The Village of Hadley couple sued the insurance arm of AAA for not paying for physical damage. A Village of Ponderosa resident made similar claims about alleged damages caused by Hurricane Nicole in a lawsuit filed against the Auto Club Insurance Company. Yeah, I've seen these home insurance lawsuits popping up everywhere. Villagers are being asked to refrain from walking or allowing dogs to run loose at the Sharon Rose Weissens Preserve. The preserve is a protected wildlife area and dogs are not allowed. For the enjoyment of all residents and their pets, there are many dog-friendly leash-free parks in the villages. These parks also have dog amenities, water and waste stations, and people amenities, benches, and pleasant scenery. And these places are Paradise Park, Mulberry, Bryson Perry, Atlas Canine Recreation Park, Dudley Canine Park, Rupert Canine Park, Homestead Dog Park. Hours are 7 a.m. to dusk. Parks will not open until 9 a.m. one day a week to allow for maintenance of facility. Specific days are posted at the entrance to the park. Just follow the rules, people. It works for everybody. Decaying wood holding up the Brownwood Billboard has become a safety concern. The sign is located on Buena Vista Boulevard. While conducting a scheduled annual inspection, District Manager identified a safety concern pertaining to the billboard's vertical support posts and bracing. The wood vertically supports the bracing have decayed over time, required immediate replacement, according to Melissa Scher, Purchasing Director for the District's Gov. Kimberly Horn and Associates Incorporated were retained to prepare engineering plans and specifications for the rebuilding of the billboard. 2 bids were received for the project. G&G Construction of Marion County submitted a low bid of $115,000. The other bid was $270,000 and was submitted by S.A. Casey Construction. The bids will be reviewed Monday by the Brownwood Community Development District Board of Supervisors. In 2022, residents were outraged when they learned the 10-year-old windmill and water tower at Brownwood Paddock Square were rotting, and they would have the pleasure of paying to replace the purely decorative structures. The rotting wood was replaced with steel for $126,756. That project was funded through the project-wide advisory committee. What that means is the residents here paid for it. Here's something else the residents are going to pay for it, and I don't understand why we're paying for it. Not all of it. Project-wide advisory committee will consider a $1.2 million bid to use riprap to stabilize the Morris Boulevard Bridge at Lake Sumter. PWAC members will meet at 8:30 a.m. Monday at Seabreeze Recreation Center. PWAC has wrestled for years with a sleuthing issue at the islands which support the bridge. A large portion of the embankment slid off about 8 years ago, likely due to an underwater sinkhole. For several years, PWAC has discussed and debated and argued the changed course about what to do about the problem of the embankments under the bridge. One of the options considered earlier in this discussion was riprap, a range of rocky material placed along the shoreline to provide stabilization. At one point, PWAC considered importing lime rock from the village of Finney, which was under construction at the time. In 2019, PWAC took a fresh look at the project and agreed to spend $130,000 on a professional study looking at GeoWeb reinforced slope. However, that work required waiting for the water level to go down, something that simply hasn't happened since Hurricane Irma in 2017. In June, PWAC decided to go back to the riprap solution and to seek bids for the project. The successful bidder was Patrotech Southeast Incorporated at $1,202,358. The company provides construction support and environmental services for shoreline restoration projects. The good news is that PWAC has socked away more than $1 million for the work. PWAC includes Community Development Districts 5 through 13. 1 through 4 will not have to kick in. Y'all remember this guy, right? I think you've seen a picture by now. He tried to kill his wife, said his wife, I don't remember the whole story, but he's been in jail now for a while. Anyway, she was wanting to get a divorce from him. A villager has been granted a divorce from the husband who allegedly tried to kill her. A final judgment of dissolution of marriages was entered October 31 in Sumter County Court in the marriage of 73-year-old George Hasty and his wife. She had filed for divorce on August 29, 2022, leading to the September 28, 2022 attack in which Hasty stabbed her 12 times. He is facing a charge of attempted first-degree murder. He continues to be held without bond at the Sumter County Detention Center. A previous motion to set bond was denied. I don't blame her. A paramedic will be arraigned later this month after being accused of raping a coworker in an ambulance operated by American Medical Response. Gabriel Ryan Christopher Trujillo, 39 of Oxford Oaks, is set for arraignment November 20th in Sumter County Court. He was arrested in September on a warrant charging him with sexual assault. He remains free on a $10,000 bond. I imagine who he raped feels really good about that, him being free. The project-wide advisory committee has voted to spend $525,693 to fix a water problem causing courts to crumble at 2 recreation centers in the villages. The problem has occurred at the Rohan Recreation Center tennis, platform tennis, and pickleball courts, as well as the tennis courts at the Burns Recreation Center. Those sports courts have been closed for many months. During a routine inspection of the sports courts, it was noticed that their asphalt services had begun to develop developed cracks and blistering. The cracking and blistering had caused the asphalt to rise in numerous areas and become detached from the quartz, limestone-based, leaving the quartz unplayable. The geotechnical investigation found the problem was the excessive moisture just beneath the asphalt quartz surface. PWAC member Dan Rule of Community Development District 9 supervisor said he hopes the developer is not repeating the same mistake by building more sports courts in areas with a high water table south of State Road 44. Those courts will likely end up under PWAC, which oversees amenities south of County Road 466 in the villages. After we take possession of those courts, we could discover they were built in high water areas, Rule said. This is a big problem here. You come here, you go to a new area, you see all the new stuff, everything looks great, nice and clean. Oh, I love it, but I'm going to buy. Well, after the developer turns it over to your development district, which is only like a year or two, I think it is, after they're done, they turn it over to you guys. Once they turn it over to you guys, anything that goes bad, it's your baby. You come up with the money and fix it. Now, that could include me also. So when I pointed out a few things in videos and people were throwing rocks at me saying, why do you nitpick? Why do you nitpick? This is why. Because we're all going to pay for it if it isn't done right. A suspected golf cart thief is back in jail after allegedly punching a woman in the face. Mark Muldoon, a 60-year-old Chicago native who lives in the Escondido Villas, was being held without bond in the Sumter County Detention Center following his arrest Sunday by Sumter County Sheriff's deputies. Muldoon, who had been released from the jail on October 3 following his arrest the previous month on suspicion he had stolen a golf cart from the church and villages, was at an undisclosed residence in the villages on Sunday when a 73-year-old woman made dinner for herself and a friend. Muldoon asked for some of the food, but the woman refused. Apparently angered Muldoon, flipped over a table and punched the woman in the face. Muldoon was already in trouble for allegedly stealing a silver 2019 Onward Club Car golf cart on the evening of September 16th at Fairway Christian Church on County Road 466. He had been driven there by a member of the church who was attending a worship service. Muldoon has a long, troubled history in Florida's friendliest hometown. This past May, Muldoon was armed with a broom when he allegedly caused a laceration to a man's head. In 2021, Muldoon was arrested after headbutting a man in a dispute over a cell phone. In 2020, Muldoon was arrested after paying an unwanted visit to Spanish Springs Town Square. He had been banned from the square in 2015. That year, he was sentenced to 30 days in jail after a woman complained to a police officer that he had been grabbing at women's arms and asking them to dance while at the square. Muldoon has had numerous other arrests, most of them stemming from intoxicated behavior. I just laugh because I keep coming back to the same old thing that I say. Is this what you expected in a retirement community? Let's do a couple letters to the editor. This is a little long, but I'm going to read it. To the editor, I live in District 2, which does not allow anonymous complaints. So here's the obvious consequence of taking names. My street in the village of Santo Domingo is the tackiest street I've ever seen in the villages. I finally, after 6 years, complained about one woman's violations in her front yard, including an inoperable car sitting there for many years and parking on the lawn. That's definite no, you can't do any of that. I was the third person to complain. She went around the neighbors, and now they all walk by my house screaming at me. Call the police. That's against the law. Record it and just call the police. You can't do that. That's harassment. This is how people are now. Make no mistake about it. You're lucky if you can say anything to anybody about anything. That's why I'm pro-anonymity. However, a complaint should only be about your own street. I don't say that. I say the complaint should only come from the person living in your district. I am firmly against the trolls who drive around other people's streets and report on them. I don't know that happens, and I don't know until somebody sends me a picture of these so-called trolls. I don't believe it even happens. Frankly, it's a bit like Nazi-like. Nah, it ain't Nazi-like at all. That's a bit extreme. Nobody's dying. Nobody's being killed. Nobody's being drug off. Come on, let's get real. That's sent in by Susan Barr, the village of Santo Domingo. Thank you, Susan. To the editor, when we first moved here, golf carts were not allowed to go more than 19 miles per hour. You actually got a ticket if caught. Now it seems cart rules have long gone. Cars do not have the right of way on streets. Cars do. Cars are not to go more than 19 miles per hour, but they sure do. Golf carts basically have the same road rules, so get with it, people. That's sent in by Janet Rath, the village of Hemingway. 75% of what she says here is incorrect. 25% is correct. I'll let you decide. How many O's and ones did we get this week? Looks like 3. A Village of DeLuna resident was thrilled after getting a hole-in-one Friday at the Southern Oaks Golf Course. Jack Ladd scored the lucky ace on hole number 6 at 125 yards. Congratulations on your hole-in-one there, Jack. A Village of Bonita woman was thrilled after getting a hole-in-one. Colleen Flores scored the lucky ace at hole number 8 at the Tarpon Boyle Executive Golf Course. Congratulations on your hole-in-one, Colleen. A Village of Bonnybrook resident scored a hole-in-one on his first outing back to El Diablo Executive Golf Course on Tuesday, November the 7th. Chuck Peterson scored the ace at hole number 5 while golfing with the Bonnybrook Tuesday men's golf group. He just returned to the Villages for the winter months. So that's a way to go there, Chuck. That's a welcome home hole-in-one if I ever heard of one. Well, I think that's going to be it for the news. I just want to say thanks for subscribing. If you'd like to support what we do on this channel, consider being a Patreon member. My Patreons make the news possible, and I thank them each and every week when I can, and I try to update the names as much as I can to show them my appreciation. So with that being said, next Monday, there'll be another video. Next Wednesday, join us on Port Sutton. It'll be live. Sue will be with me this week. And then next Friday, of course, more news. So with that being said, don't leave your keys in a golf cart, please. Have a great day.